Shiva has kept you all awake already. Thank you, Shiva, for that. So, briefly of what I am going to be, I don't see it there. Yeah, briefly of what I am going to be talking about. So today, when we hear the word sarcopenia, we imagine muscles, right? So we are going to talk about the muscle avengers versus diabetes and why muscle matters more than what we think. So you imagine our favorite heroes, and suddenly we know that now they are diabetic, people with diabetes, and you can imagine what will happen to their muscles. So basically we are all worried that we should not lose muscles. And when we talk about sarcopenia, we definitely know that is inevitable. We don't know what is the reason for it, but after the age of 60, whatever you say and do, you are getting sarcopenic. And therefore, when we talk about sarcopenia specially, it is not only the mass that we are talking about, the muscle mass, but it's also the strength and the function. So when this loss of strength and function will lead to frailty, disabilities, and a little change even in the glycemic control. So of course age is a very big factor when we talk about sarcopenia. So why dietitians should care? Why should we be worried about sarcopenia? It's a process, it's a body, it's a normal aging process, and it's inevitable, it happens. So yet we as dietitians, we are looking for sarcopenia, and we understand that detection of early muscle loss, designing a personalized nutrition and resistance plan, integrating the CGM as well as the body composition. So what I mean is that early identification of high-risk patients will allow our patients to be much more healthier and much more controlled. So many studies have been done in the past, whether it is the study at AIIMS, which observed muscle loss in a number of type 2 diabetes patients. Also, let us see how this all happens and what are the repercussions of sarcopenia, whether it's a public health concern or diabetes management concern. Now this is a vicious cycle. So it's like what is first, the chicken or the egg? So here, does diabetes accelerate sarcopenia, or is it the other way around? So definitely we know that muscle is a storehouse of glycogen, and here we are talking about muscles and glucose, and hence the site for glycogen storage or muscle or glucose uptake is the muscle. So loss of muscle here will definitely impact the glucose uptake as well as hence the insulin resistance. So hyperglycemia, insulin resistance, inflammation, oxidative stress, they all accelerate the muscle breakdown. This leads to advanced glycation products, that's AGEs, and intramuscular fat impaired muscle quality. So here we are talking about not only the mass, the muscle mass, but also the muscle quality. So sarcopenia and diabetes, where type 2 is concerned, it does accelerate the progression and the disability as well as frailty, leading to a worsening of diabetes control. So can we map the metabolic vicious cycle of diabetes and sarcopenia? Because there are many things that are involved in this. It's inflammation, oxidative stress, AGEs, the IMAT, commonly known as intramuscular adipose tissues, the gut microbiome, or the insulin resistance. So talking about the inflammation, the problem of muscle atrophy, type 2 diabetes is characterized by a chronic low-grade inflammation that attacks the muscle, that leads to atrophy and muscle wasting. That is, here we are primarily talking about the muscle strength. Now, the markers here which we should be looking out for is IL-6, TNF-alpha, C-reactive protein, and they are linked to the insulin resistance and hence poor muscle health. We also talk about ROS, that is the oxidative stress that is caused by the increased reactive oxygen species, and therefore it reduces antioxidants and is a major contributor of muscle wasting. So ROS actually causes a double hit on the muscle and the mitochondrial dysfunction as well as calcium loss. So advanced glycation end products, AGEs, are irreversible molecules that are formed when excess sugar, that is when your sugar is actually affecting and reacting to two major important components of our body, that is your proteins as well as your lipids. There is a dual mechanism that is involved in this muscle damage. One is the inflammation and oxidative stress, and second is the structural damage of the of the cells. So IMAT, that is intramuscular adipose tissue, the muscle infiltration. Here we are talking about the ectopic fat, that's fat that is deposited where it should not be there, especially in the skeletal muscle, and this fat deposition can greatly harm, can cause insulin resistance, can cause mitochondrial oxidative stress and a physical disruption. Not forgetting about the gut muscle axis. We've all read about gut axis where the brain, kidney, liver, everything is concerned. But here is something, the new target of type 2 diabetes and sarcopenia is the gut muscle axis, where you talk about the dysbiosis that contributes to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, by increasing the intestinal permeability, endotoxemia, as well as altered metabolism of both the short chain fatty acids as well as the branch chain amino acids. So if sarcopenia is the poverty of the flesh, what is the first most important telling sign that the muscle strength is declining? Because sometimes when we even normally if we undergo some kind of even a minor surgery or a sickness, and we don't even realize that we have lost muscles. In fact, it happens to our elderlies, the elderly population in our own houses, in our own surroundings and family, and suddenly we find them looking frailer, thinner, leaner, and whilst they may be sometimes happy that they're losing weight, but it is actually the sarcopenia that's taking over them. And this is a very important sign that we should be able to realize with our patient who's coming and meeting us in the OPD clinic. Or not sarcopenia is not necessarily diagnosed only at a stage where it is really bad and the patient is in the ICU or we are doing a DEXA scan. So this is an important part where you need to actually find out what happened. So here you look at what is the reason of the sarcopenia, whether it is aging, whether it is some other reasons like vitamin deficiency, smoking, hormonal decline, or where nutrition is concerned. Is nutrition a concern here? And that's where we have to raise our red flags. So what is a first line screening tool, often represented by an acronym like SARC-F, and the other simple physical measurements which help the probable sarcopenia. So it's not very easy to actually understand whether the person is getting sarcopenic. So important is, first you find, you assess, you confirm, and then you grade the severity. So to find the sarcopenia, there are very simple tools that are available. I'll go through that one by one. So before advancing and getting DEXAs, CT scans, MRIs and imaging done, which are not only expensive, but it is not practical to just tell a person, oh, I think you're getting sarcopenic, you're losing muscle mass, you are diabetic, so just go and get a CT done. It is easier to get a screening done first by yourself. So if simple screening tools are available which can measure the probable sarcopenia, you can use screening tools like SARC-F, hand grip, gait speed, or simple questionnaires can be put, that is the MNA, before you actually lead yourself to the patient to tell them to do a imaging modality. So how do you implement? Very easy screening techniques in the clinical settings. We do have SARC-F, like just as all NABH and JCI hospitals will have a nutritional assessment that has to be done for all the patients. When you are doubting and when you want to confirm whether the patient is losing muscle or no, it is a very easy, simple tool to run a questionnaire called SARC-F. If you do not have an hand grip meter today, we all just got one. We took the form that was available at the counter there, and we just had to stamp every counter, and we at the end of it we got a hand grip. So if you all did not get yours, go out and you will be able to get a hand grip dynamometer. Also, simple screening tools can be used. This can be used even not necessarily by you, because sometimes I understand there's too many patients to see and lesser amount of time. So even the nurse or some other medical professional can use these screening tools. So in a screening in a clinical setting, this is just it's a validated tool, so it's just got 5 items where they will ask you very simple questions. They'll ask you to walk, rise from the chair, climb the stairs, and check your scoring if it is less than 4 or greater than 4. Many studies have shown the benefit of using the SARCF questionnaire. Also using the hand grip technique. Counseling is a very, very important strategy. I use this very, very often in my setting. Is what I tell my patients is that if we know that they are protein deficient, and if that's the one thing that will help them to prevent sarcopenia, is I ask them to begin their diet or begin their meals with protein first. And so when they usually plan their menu, I have observed that you always plan with the carbohydrate first. Like, you want to know what you're going to eat first, whether it's the rice chapati or idli, dosa. Those are kind of things that you plan first, but you never plan for egg, chicken, fish, pulses first. So your planning itself is what I tell the caregivers, that your planning itself should start from the carbohydrates first, the protein first, the carbohydrate, the fiber second, and the carbohydrate last. So when you do that, a little bit of counseling to the family members help. Also, I tell them that see to it that you have minimum of 2 proteins per meal that you eat. So first you complete your proteins, and then you can eat the rest of the food. So a little bit of counseling is good. Again, when we talk about people with diabetes and sarcopenia, we do estimate the energy requirements. Of course, when the person is losing a lot of weight or is got other metabolic problems, then we identify how many calories. So it's not really fixed that you need to give 30 kilocalories, but if you can use Broca's index or Harris-Benedict's or any other formula that you're using to find out the exact calories that are required. We all do not really have indirect calorimetries that we use, but we use different formulas which can be used. However, protein can be a high protein, which includes branched chain amino acids, whey protein, arginine, lysines, HMB, all those. We can just add those ingredients to your proteins. Carbohydrates, we all know the benefits of a low glycemic index diet. Shilpa just spoke a lot about the fats, carbohydrates, and the micronutrients in it. In diet, this is just very typical to say Mediterranean diet. I would just say go in with an very clean Indian diet, which will give you a balanced nutrition, which will give you fiber, proteins, a little bit of fat, probiotics, and everything. So that would be more than enough for you where it is concerned. We cannot forget that we need supplements at times, we need pharmacological help, and we should even consider taking help of medicines, especially the doctors, where controlling sarcopenia is concerned. So whether it is micronutrients essentials like vitamin D, whether it is polyphenols, as the way Shiva just spoke, or whether it is pharmacological considerations, but we should be aggressive to prevent sarcopenia, or rather than prevent, we can say slow down it as much as possible. We are all important, but it's the same with physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and endocrinologists. And I think here, especially the patients, when they are at home, the occupational therapist is most important, because what I have observed is that people, when we tell them to exercise, they do that for half an hour, 45 minutes of brisk walking, brisk exercise, or even resistant training. But the entire 24 hours beyond that, the rest of the 23 hours is very sedentary and very lax. So here the role of the occupational therapist is very important, because here the therapist will actually help you to understand how you can move your muscles on a day-to-day basis in your daily living, what you can do, how you get up from the chair, how do you pick up things, how do you lift small things. So these small little changes, it's not only about doing that 1 hour of exercise every day, but being active throughout the day, using every muscle of your body throughout the day is very important, because just by giving protein, we know that the proteins will just get wasted if you do not use it with some kind of resistant training. So that is important. So whilst talking about proteins, we've heard from Shiva also, it's not that unless there's nephropathy involved, you have to carefully tweak the protein. But what Shilpa also said, that you do not go so low that the body is using protein, your muscles, for your energy and for the other activities. So don't stop completely proteins of diabetic nephropathy patients. Rather than you estimate the correct protein that they would require, it plan it accordingly. Yes, and I have finished. I'll leave you with a takeaway. Nutrition isn't just food, it is a foundation, and also these are some of the combinations you can use for getting your. So muscle is a new organ of longevity. Feed it, train it, protect it. Thank you so much.